Hi friends, I'm Felicia. Welcome back to my channel. So this video is part 2 of my quarter 3 wrap-up. I'm going to be sharing my historical, sci-fi, fantasy, and nonfiction wrap-up with you today. There's only 12 books to talk about, so hopefully it won't be too long of a video for you. Starting with historical, the first book is it's half contemporary, half historical. So I just lumped it in with historical, and that's Monstrous Beauty by Elizabeth Fama. This is a mermaid story, but it's kind of a darker story. It's not a light and fluffy, cute story, that's for sure. And I haven't heard really anybody talk about this book. It was published a few years ago. Maybe people read it then, but no one's been reading it the last few years. But I bought this in my first book haul from Book Outlet. And I thought, finally this summer I'm going to read it, because I just love mermaid books in the summer. And I was going to read it for Booktubeathon, but I didn't quite get to it. This is a story, part of it is from a mermaid's point of view in the 1800s. And then the other part is from, what is she, 17-year-old girl living in present day. And it's kind of a story of these two timelines not meeting up, but like how they intersect, how the first timeline is affecting the second timeline, the present day timeline, and it's yeah, kind of a darker mermaid story, and it has a lot of myth, and there's ghosts, and there's stuff like that. I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of different. And it had a lot of those elements that I like of stories kind of meshing together and seeing where this in the past affects this now and how they tie together. I really like books like that. If you have books like that, recommend them to me because I love it. It's one of my favorite tropes. I would give this like a moderate content rating. Not like there's sex and stuff, but I guess just kind of the atmosphere. It just feels grittier, I guess. Not that there's like a lot of graphic stuff going on. But I wouldn't recommend it for younger readers. But like 16-year-olds can handle this. Like I would have liked this when I was 16, I think. But yeah, I quite like it. I'm glad that I read it. And I have another book from Elizabeth Fama on my shelf that I will hopefully read yet. There was an interview with her at the back, which was very interesting, and it had a lot to add to the story. The next book that I finished, just getting comfy. The next book that I finished was Maud by not Ellen Montgomery, Melanie J. Fishbane, inspired by the life of Ellen Montgomery. And this is basically a fictional account of Ellen Montgomery's teenage years. And it's very historically accurate, I think, because the author, it's very obvious the author did a lot of research with journals and letters and stuff we know about Ellen Montgomery, and she put it in this book, and I absolutely loved it. I buddy read this with Angela and Sam, and actually gave Sam and I both this book for Christmas last year, and so we buddy read it together, and it was great. Like it was so good. If you're a fan of Ellen Montgomery, like I would recommend this. It was just really good, and you can see, according to this book, you can see where she got a lot of her inspiration for Ahead of Green Gables and supposedly Emily of New Moon, which I haven't read yet, but I will read once I'm done my reread of Anne. I do have the Emily books. Also, they're like continuing to publish all of Ellen Montgomery's books with the Ellie McKay covers, which I just love. So I'm going to be buying all of those. I will take them for Christmas. Hint, hint, Chris. Which eye am I winking with? I'm so awkward, sorry. I keep doing this. Like we have secrets. Like there's someone here that's gonna hear us. You guys, I'm losing it. Oh my gosh. The last book in my historical fiction category is Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce. And I listened to this on audio, and it was narrated by Anna Popplewell, who played Miss Susan Pevensey in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I really enjoyed this book. I really liked it. It's set during World War II in England. You know how I feel about World War II fiction. Our main character, she wants to be a journalist, and that's just her biggest dream. She wants to be a war journalist. one day she's looking through the newspaper and she sees that a magazine is hiring, or a publishing company, and she thinks, this is my chance. I can finally follow my dream. And so she applies for this job and she gets it. And then she shows up for her first day of work and she realizes that her job is not as a journalist, but she is going to be assistant to the editor of the women's magazine. So very far away from what she actually wants to do. So it's kind of following her journey there, assisting the editor, and she also writes the advice column. And so one of her tasks is to read these letters and figure out which ones get the inappropriate ones out of the way so that she doesn't have to waste her time reading these inappropriate letters and just answering the good ones. And what I really liked about this book was, it just kind of, it felt to me like it very much captured the feeling of like what everyday people were facing during the war. Like, there were bombs falling during the night, but the next day they had to go to work, and that's just what they had to do. And so for me, I really like that aspect of it. This is a debut novel, and I thought it was well written. Yeah, it was really good for a debut, and it's fast read. If you like World War II fiction, I would recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I would actually like to own a physical copy of it because it was very good. Moving on to fantasy. The first fantasy book that I finished was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This book wasn't even on my radar at all. Like, people were talking about it a lot this spring when it was published, and there was a lot of hype around it, but it was like not on my radar at all. But then one day my sister-in-law texted me and said, have you read this book? I want to talk about it with you. And so I was like, well, no, I haven't read it, but if you want to talk about it with me, then I will read it. So basically it's a story about a human girl living in a fairyland. She's been taken in by a fairy lord, not king, a fairy lord, and she's trying to navigate her way through the society there. It's not easy for humans to really make it as anything other than slaves in that society, because of her advantages of being adopted by this lord. She has more advantages, and so she's just trying to set up a place for herself. And I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I thought I wouldn't really like it, but it has that political intrigue that I enjoy, and there were a lot of twists and turns, especially towards the end. There was stuff happening, and I was like, I did not see this coming. Like, I was totally blindsided by it. And then the ending, I was like, whoa. So, I will be continuing on in the series, and this is actually amazing. I can't remember the last time I picked up a series with, like, book 1 as it's being published. So, hopefully I'll keep up with this series as it goes on. And then I told my sister-in-law, okay, now you have to read The Kiss of Deception. So she texted me yesterday and she says I got my hold in for The Kiss of Deception. I was like, yes, you gotta read it. The next book that I finished in the fantasy category was Fox by Nadine Brandis, and this was a Booktubeathon read, so you can watch my Booktubeathon wrap-up for my full thoughts on that one. But I loved it. It was great. The Christian, fantasy, historical, like, okay, what is it? It was like a historical story with like fantasy elements woven in, and it was really good. And now I want to read everything Nadine Brandis writes because it was just awesome. So I would recommend it if you like historical retellings. But you can watch that video, my Booktubeathon wrap up, for more thoughts. Then, this book took me a long time. I finished Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It took me like 2 months to read this, and I enjoyed it. I don't feel like I have anything new to add to the Harry Potter conversation. This is my first time reading these books as a 30-year-old woman. So, but yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I thought it was good. There was a part in the middle when it was getting pretty dull. It was just felt kind of repetitive, but then that was in between the Quidditch World Finals and the Triwizard Tournament starting. The part in between there felt kind of boring, but then once the Triwizard Tournament started, then it picked up again, so it was good. But yeah, I read it, and now I'll watch the movie. Hopefully it won't suck as much as I feel like the Prisoner of Azkaban movie sucks, because I think that book is still my favorite, Prisoner of Azkaban, and that movie was just dreadful. Like, it left out so many of the good parts. It was confusing and stupid. So those are my thoughts. Don't come at me. Don't at me. Don't at me, guys. Just sometimes book to movie adaptations just are frustrating. My sci-fi. I don't really know if these are sci-fi, but I have 2 books that I read during Bootubeathon, so you can watch again that video for my full thoughts. And they are Luminary and Revolutionary by Chris McGee. This is books 2 and 3 in her Anomaly trilogy, which is very good. Christian dystopian sci-fi, kind of speculative. But it's sci-fi because there's like lots of technology that isn't in our world currently. But I really like these books. Some of the, I think the weakest point for me is dialogue. Some of the dialogue felt a little bit stilted. It didn't flow smoothly, but also it was good. I don't know. It wasn't bad. Not by any means bad. But, yeah. Anyways, I don't know. Watch my other video for more thoughts, because apparently I don't even remember what they are. But I liked it. And I thought it was a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. So there you go. The last sci-fi book that I read was the Han Solo trilogy by A.C. Crispin. This is my husband's book. He picked it off of he picked this for my summer TBR. This is his book, and he wanted me to read it. I listened to it on audio, and then later I found out that it was like very heavily abridged audio, so I still don't have the whole story. For example, so this is a Han Solo origin story, which is completely moot now apparently because they just redid the Solo movie, or redid Solo's origin story. But I thought it was interesting. I think people that are more into Star Wars than I am will find more value. Like, I like Star Wars, but I'm like more casual about it. So I'm not like all into the history and all that stuff. Like, I don't know it. I don't retain names and places and stuff like that. Like, I don't have that map in my head. Does that make sense? But I did enjoy it. But like, this book ends right where the first scene where we meet Han in Star Wars, like it ends right where that starts. Yeah, I would recommend it for Star Wars fans. The audio was pretty good. It was like well produced and everything. It had the sound effects and everything, and the Wookiee noises and stuff. So yeah, that was good. Okay, then I have 3 nonfiction books. 2 of them I talked about in my Bootubeathon wrap-up, and they are The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning by Margareta Magnusson, maybe, and Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. You can hear my thoughts about both of those in that video, but I enjoyed them. And then the last one is Are Women Human by Dorothy Sayers, and this was another one that Chris picked for me for my summer TBR. So I did basically better with reading the books he picked for me than the books I picked for myself. It's basically just a collection, 2 essays that Dorothy Sayers wrote about feminism, and I quite enjoyed them. She was a peer of C.S. Lewis. They were in their Inklings group together with Tolkien and other writers. And she's written a lot of other books apparently, which I will have to read because I like her humor and her writing style. And it was very refreshing to read a biblical perspective on feminism, even though she wouldn't say this is like a feminist book or anything. Like, she didn't consider herself to be a feminist. But this is just 2 essays on the role of women in society. And there was just a lot of, like, I was underlining stuff. It was actually like, there was humor and there was a lot of poignant points in here. It was a quick read, and I thought it lined up with what I believe about the Bible, so I was okay with it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So yeah, that's it. That's it. I talked about all of the books. Yay, I did it. So those are all of the books that I read in July, August, and September. That was, I think, 24 books that I talked about in these last 2 videos. And my voice is shot, so I'm going to stop talking and go watch some TV or something. No, I'll read. I'll read A Count of Monte Cristo. That's my book club book. And I should be about chapter 60, and I'm not even in chapter 40 yet. But it's a good read, so I'll keep reading that. And I would love to know if you have any thoughts about these books. If you agree that the Prisoner of Azkaban movie is a terrible adaptation of a really good book, I would love to know your thoughts on that. If you disagree with me, don't get mad at me. That's just my opinion. I was going to say something else, but it went out of my head. So, that's all that I have for today. I'm going to stop talking. So, until next time, so long, and thanks for all the fish.